The galactic Colosseum stretched across the horizon of Axis Prime like a jewel carved from starlight. 3 suns hung in the purple sky, casting long shadows across the crystalline arena where 10,000 beings from 400 different worlds had gathered to witness what the Imperial Council called an educational demonstration. Jack Harris stood in the waiting chamber, rolling his shoulders and shaking out his arms. He was a simple man from Earth, 6 feet tall, brown hair starting to gray at the temples, wearing plain gray combat clothes that looked almost primitive compared to the gleaming armor and technological enhancements worn by other species around him. His hands were wrapped in basic cloth tape, the kind boxers had used for centuries back home. Through the transparent wall he could see the arena floor. It was massive, easily 200 feet across, with a surface that seemed to shimmer and shift colors. Above it, viewing platforms rose in tiers, packed with aliens of every imaginable shape and size. Some had 4 arms, others had scales or feathers or skin that glowed with bioluminescence. The noise of their conversations created a rumble like distant thunder. A door opened behind him. A tall figure entered, moving with the kind of grace that only comes from absolute confidence. Kresh the Unbreakable stood 9 feet tall, his body covered in natural armor plating that looked like polished obsidian. He had 4 arms, each one thick with corded muscle, and his face was angular with sharp ridges along his jaw and forehead. His eyes were a deep amber color, and they studied Jack with something between curiosity and pity. "You are the human champion," Kresh said. His voice was deep, resonating in the small room like a bass drum. "That's me," Jack replied, meeting the alien's gaze without flinching. "I have fought for 200 years, Kresh continued, moving closer. "I have won 10,000 sanctioned combat trials across 50 different worlds. I have never been defeated. Not once." He paused, looking down at Jack. "I tell you this not to boast, but so you understand what you face. There is no shame in refusing this fight." Jack smiled slightly. "Appreciate the warning. I'll take my chances." Kresh tilted his head, confused by the human's calm demeanor. "You have no armor. No weapons. No biological enhancements that my sensors can detect. Your skeleton appears to be organic calcium, your skin has no protective scales or plates, and you possess only 2 arms." He gestured to himself. "Logic suggests this will not end well for you." "Logic can be funny sometimes," Jack said, stretching his neck from side to side. The joints popped softly. Before Kresh could respond, a chime sounded. A voice echoed through the chamber, speaking in a language Jack's translator implant converted to English. "Combatants to the arena floor. The exhibition will begin in 2 minutes." They walked together down a long corridor that opened onto the arena. The moment they emerged into the light, the crowd's noise swelled to a roar. Jack saw beings pointing at him, heard laughter rippling through the stands. He caught fragments of conversation through his translator. "That's the human? He looks so fragile. I heard their planet is classified as a Class 12 death world. How did something so weak survive there? This will be over in seconds. Poor creature." Admiral Thorne stood in the Imperial box, his own 4 arms crossed as he addressed the crowd through amplification systems. "Citizens of the Empire, today we demonstrate the natural order of galactic civilization. The human species, recently discovered on a hostile world they call Earth, has been granted the honor of this exhibition match. They will learn, as all primitive species must, that survival on a dangerous planet does not equal combat superiority." More laughter from the crowd. Jack ignored it, walking to the center of the arena where a referee waited. The referee was a being made of what looked like living crystal, its body refracting the light of the 3 suns into rainbow patterns. "The rules are simple," the referee explained. "No weapons. No technological enhancements. The fight continues until one combatant achieves submission, unconsciousness, or death." They looked between them. "Do you both understand and accept these terms?" "I accept," Kresh said immediately. "Same here," Jack replied. The referee backed away, raising one crystalline arm. The crowd fell silent, thousands of beings leaning forward in anticipation. "Begin," the referee announced and dropped its arm. Kresh moved first, closing the distance between them with surprising speed. His lower right arm shot forward in a testing jab, the kind of strike meant to gauge an opponent's reaction time. He pulled it slightly, not wanting to kill the human in the first second of the fight. Jack's head shifted 6 inches to the left. The blow passed harmlessly by his ear. The crowd gasped. Kresh tried again, this time with his upper left arm, a hooking motion aimed at Jack's ribs. Again Jack moved just enough, the strike missing by inches. He was already circling, his feet moving in a strange pattern that Kresh didn't recognize. Interesting, Kresh murmured. You have some training. A bit, Jack admitted, his hands up near his face in loose fists. Kresh launched a combination now, using just his right arms to maintain the exhibition's educational purpose. 2 quick jabs, a hook and uppercut. Strikes that would have shattered stone blocks. Jack weaved under the first jab, slipped inside the second, bobbed away from the hook and stepped back from the uppercut. His movements were economical, never wasting energy, always traveling the minimum distance necessary to avoid the strikes. In the stands, beings who had been laughing now sat silent, watching more carefully. Jack continued to circle, to retreat, his breathing steady and controlled. To most observers, it looked like he was running, desperately trying to survive. But Jack was doing something else entirely. He was studying his opponent, watching how Kresh moved his feet, where his weight settled before each strike, how his forearms coordinated their attacks. Will you actually fight? Kresh called out, or simply run until you collapse from exhaustion? Jack smiled. Just getting warmed up. Your planet has what, about 70% Earth gravity? Take your time. I can do this all day. Something flickered in Kresh's eyes. The human wasn't breathing hard despite all the movement. His heart rate, according to Kresh's enhanced vision, was barely elevated. That should not be possible for someone supposedly fleeing in panic. High above in an observation deck, Dr. Emma Foster watched her scanning equipment with growing concern. The readings she was getting from the human didn't match any of the Empire's predictions. His bone density was far higher than expected. His muscle fibers showed an efficiency rating that seemed impossible for his size. And his cardiovascular system was operating with a level of performance that suggested he was barely exerting himself. Something's wrong with my equipment, she muttered to her supervisor. Nothing is wrong, her supervisor replied. The human is simply stalling. Kresh will end this momentarily. Below, Kresh's patience finally broke. He had given the human enough time to demonstrate basic competence. Now it was time to finish this exhibition and move on to more important matters. He gathered all 4 arms, coordinating them into a devastating combination attack that had never failed him in 10,000 fights. It was designed to trap opponents regardless of which direction they dodged, a cage of bone-hard strikes that would overwhelm any defense. Kresh launched forward, committing fully to the attack. And Jack Harris stopped retreating. Kresh's 4 arms came down like falling hammers. Upper arms sweeping high, lower arms cutting across the middle, creating a cage of strikes designed to crush anything caught between them. It was the finishing move that had ended countless battles, a technique perfected over 2 centuries of combat. Jack did not retreat. He did not dodge to the side. Instead, he stepped forward, moving into the attack rather than away from it. The crowd leaned forward, confusion rippling through the stands. What was the human doing? Was he surrendering? Had fear frozen him in place? Jack slipped between the massive arms, inside the reach where Kresh's strikes lost their power. His feet planted firmly on the arena floor, shoulder-width apart. His right foot pressed down hard, driving force up through his leg. His hips rotated sharply to the left, his torso following the movement. His shoulder whipped forward, and his right arm extended in a motion that took less than half a second. His fist, wrapped in simple cloth tape, traveled exactly 18 inches. It connected with Kresh's jaw with a sound like a tree branch snapping. The crack echoed across the silent arena. Kresh's head snapped to the side. His amber eyes went wide, then unfocused. The exoskeletal plating along his jaw showed a visible fracture, a dark line spreading across the polished surface. His massive body, 300 pounds of muscle and armor, stumbled backward. He took one step, then another, his legs no longer responding to commands from his brain. Then Kresh the Unbreakable fell. He hit the arena floor with a crash that sent vibrations through the crystal surface. His 4 arms sprawled out at odd angles. His eyes stared at the purple sky, seeing nothing. Unconscious. For 3 full seconds the Galactic Coliseum was absolutely silent. 10,000 beings sat frozen, their minds unable to process what their eyes had just witnessed. Some thought there must have been a mistake. Others wondered if the arena floor had malfunctioned, if some hidden trap had been triggered. Jack stood over the fallen warrior, flexing his right hand and wincing slightly. That's going to bruise, he muttered to himself, shaking out his fingers. The crystal referee stood motionless, its programming struggling with an outcome it had never been designed to expect. Finally, it raised one arm, its voice cutting through the silence. Victor, the human Jack Harris. The arena erupted into chaos. Half the crowd surged to their feet, shouting in disbelief. The other half sat stunned, staring at the impossible scene before them. Medical teams rushed onto the floor, surrounding Kresh with scanning equipment. Security forces appeared from every entrance, weapons trained on Jack even though the match had been declared over. Admiral Thorne's voice boomed across the arena, raw with fury. Scan the human. He must have used hidden technology. Energy weapons. Poison delivery systems. This cannot be legitimate. Dr. Emma Foster was already running every scan her equipment could perform. Her hands flew across holographic displays as data flooded her screens. She ran the analysis twice, then a third time, unable to believe the results. No foreign technology detected, she reported, her voice shaking. No chemical weapons. No energy signatures. No biological toxins. No electromagnetic pulses. Nothing. Her supervisor grabbed her shoulder. That's impossible. Run it again. I've run it 5 times. Emma's professional composure cracked. It was purely biomechanical force. He generated approximately 4,000 newtons of impact using nothing but his skeletal structure and muscular system. How much mass does the human have? About 90 kilograms. And he generated 4,000 newtons? The supervisor's voice trailed off as he did the calculations. That's equivalent to being struck by a small vehicle. Emma pulled up slow-motion footage of the punch, displaying it on the main screen for the observation deck. They watched Jack's movements frame by frame. The way his foot planted and drove force upward. The rotation of his hips adding angular momentum. The whip-like motion of his shoulder and arm channeling all that energy into a single point of impact. It's a kinetic chain, Emma whispered. He turned his entire body into a mechanism for transferring force. We've never seen this because our species don't fight this way. We rely on natural weapons, on strength, on multiple limbs striking simultaneously. But the human, he used physics. On the arena floor, medical scanners flickered over Kresh's prone form. One of the medics, a small being with 6 delicate limbs, looked up at the security chief. He's alive. Severe concussion. Fractured jawbone. His brain experienced significant trauma from the rotational acceleration of his skull. The medic paused, checking the readings again. I've never seen a Vraxian sustain this level of head injury from a physical strike. Their skeletal structure is specifically designed to prevent this. The security chief, a heavily armored creature named Vex, turned to Jack. What weapon did you use? Jack held up his right hand, showing the wrapped knuckles. This. Same thing humans have been using for about 200,000 years. Impossible. You're half his size. Your bones should have shattered. My bones are designed for 1.0 gravity, Jack explained calmly, even as a dozen weapons remained pointed at him. Earth gravity. Kresh's bones are designed for 0.7. My skeleton is about 40% denser than yours predicted. And I didn't just use my arm. I used my legs, my hips, my core, my shoulder, everything working together. It's called technique. Admiral Thorne descended from the Imperial box, his 4 arms trembling with barely controlled rage. He pushed through the crowd of medics and security, stopping just feet from Jack. You used Deathworlder tricks, Thorne snarled. No civilized species fights with such primitive. I used a punch, Jack interrupted, his voice level but firm. A basic strike that humans have been teaching each other since before we had written language. Not my fault your champion didn't know how to defend against it. This was meant to be an educational demonstration, Thorne continued, his voice rising. To show your species its proper place in the galactic order. Jack met the Admiral's glare without flinching. Well, I'd say we all learned something today. Question is, what are you going to do about it? Before Thorne could respond, movement came from the medical area. Kresh stirred, his healing factor already beginning to repair the damage. His eyes opened slowly, focusing with difficulty on the ceiling above him. What happened? Kresh's voice was weak, slurred. One of the medics leaned over him. You were defeated, champion. By a single strike. Kresh tried to sit up, but gentle hands pushed him back down. No. That's not possible. I don't lose. I've never. His voice trailed off as memory returned. The human stepping forward instead of back. The impossible power in that simple movement. The moment of impact and then nothing. Where is the human? Kresh demanded, his pride wounded far worse than his jaw. Under guard, the medic replied. The Admiral is deciding what to do. Kresh pushed himself up despite the protests around him, his 4 arms shaking with effort. He had been unconscious for less than 2 minutes, But in that time his entire understanding of combat had been shattered along with his jaw. He looked across the arena to where Jack stood, surrounded by security but calm, almost relaxed. Their eyes met across the distance. And for the first time in 200 years, Kresh the Unbreakable felt something he had forgotten existed. Respect for an opponent. 2 hours after the fight, Jack sat in a small diplomatic room, an ice pack pressed against his swollen knuckles. The room was plain, with white walls and basic furniture that seemed designed for multiple species. His right hand throbbed with a deep ache that told him he had definitely bruised the bones, maybe even cracked something small. Worth it though. The door opened without warning. Jack looked up, expecting another interrogator or perhaps Admiral Thorne coming to yell at him some more. Instead, Kresh entered, ducking his 9-foot frame through the doorway. The fracture along his jaw was still visible, a dark line across his otherwise perfect armor plating. "You should be in medical," Jack said, not standing from his chair. "I have been in medical," Kresh replied, his voice slightly distorted by the injury. "They repaired what they could. The rest will heal naturally over the next few days." He moved farther into the room, his forearms hanging loosely at his sides. "I needed to speak with you." "I'm listening." Kresh pulled out a chair, reinforced to handle his weight, and sat down across from Jack. For a long moment, the Vraxian warrior just stared at the human, as if trying to solve a puzzle that refused to make sense. "I have fought for 200 years, Kresh finally said. 10,000 sanctioned trials. I have faced every major combat species in the Empire. Warriors with acid blood, beings who could phase through solid matter, creatures 3 times my size." He touched his cracked jaw gently. "Not one of them ever knocked me unconscious. Not even close." "There's a first time for everything," Jack said quietly. "How?" The question came out almost like a plea. "You are half my mass. Your bones should have shattered against my armor. Your muscles should have torn from the impact force. Yet I was the one who fell. Explain this to me." Jack studied the warrior for a moment, then set down his ice pack. "What's the gravity on your home world?" "zero point 0.7 standard imperial measurement. Earth is 1.0. Has been for about 4.5 billion years." Jack held up his bruised hand. "Every human bone, every muscle, every tendon evolved under constant pressure. We're not stronger than you in raw power. But we're denser. More compact. More efficient." Kresh listened intently, his amber eyes focused completely on Jack. "But that's not what beat you," Jack continued. He stood up, demonstrating his fighting stance. Feet shoulder-width apart, knees slightly bent, weight balanced on the balls of his feet. "Is this? Humans are built around a central spine. We're bipedal. Everything we do involves rotation and leverage." He shifted his weight, rotating his hips slowly so Kresh could see the movement. "When I threw that punch, I didn't just use my arm. I started with my feet, drove force up through my legs, rotated my hips to add torque, turned my shoulders to multiply the speed, and channeled everything down my arm into a single point. My whole skeleton became a chain transferring energy." "We train in strength," Kresh said slowly, understanding beginning to dawn. "Multi-limb coordination. Overwhelming opponents with superior numbers of strikes. And that works great against most opponents," Jack agreed. "But on Earth, gravity is our constant enemy. It's always pulling us down, making everything harder. So we learned to use physics as a weapon. We learned that technique beats power and precision beats strength." Kresh's forearms clenched into fists. "Teach me." Jack raised an eyebrow. "What?" "Teach me this technique," Kresh said, leaning forward. "I am a warrior. I have studied Vraxian combat for 2 centuries. I know Faloran grappling, Antarian energy fighting, Corvin blade work. But this," he gestured at his broken jaw. "This is something completely new. Something I never imagined existed. I must learn it." Before Jack could respond, the door burst open. Dr. Emma Foster rushed in, slightly out of breath, her data pad clutched in both hands. "Mr. Harris, the Imperial Council is meeting right now. They're deciding whether to honor the trial results or declare the whole thing invalid." She glanced at Kresh. "Admiral Thorne is pushing hard for a rematch. Multiple opponents this time. He's claiming your victory was a statistical anomaly that proves nothing." Jack sighed. "Of course he is. Politics." "There's more," Emma continued. "Some council members want to classify humans as a dangerous species and restrict Earth's contact with the Empire. Others want to study you like laboratory specimens. And a few," she paused, checking her notes. "A few are suggesting partnership accord status, but that's extremely rare for newly discovered species. Kresh stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. I will speak to the council. Emma looked surprised. You? Champion, you should be resting. Your injury. My injury is irrelevant, Kresh interrupted. I am the unbreakable. I was broken fairly in combat. Honor demands that I acknowledge this truth before the council. He looked down at Jack. And more than that, I believe the Empire needs to learn from this human, not suppress him. Jack stood as well, meeting Kresh's gaze. You do that? Stand up for me after I knocked you out in front of 10,000 people? You defeated me with superior technique, Kresh said simply. There is no shame in losing to a better fighter. There is only shame in refusing to learn from defeat. His mandibles clicked in what Jack was learning to recognize as determination. I have been undefeated for so long that I forgot what it means to grow, to improve, to discover new knowledge. You reminded me. For that I am grateful. Emma looked between them, her scientific mind racing. If you both testify before the council, explain the biomechanics, demonstrate the technique, it might change their perspective entirely. Or it might convince them that humans are too dangerous to allow into galactic society, Jack pointed out. That is a risk, Kresh acknowledged. But it is the right thing to do. Truth should not be hidden because it is inconvenient. He moved toward the door, then paused and looked back at Jack. After the council meeting, regardless of their decision, will you teach me? Even if they send you back to Earth, will you show me these techniques? Jack smiled despite the situation. Yeah, I can do that. Fair warning though, it takes years to master. And the training is hard. I have 2 centuries of experience being patient, Kresh replied. And I have never been afraid of hard work. As they prepared to head to the council chambers, Emma pulled Jack aside for a moment. Do you realize what you've done? She whispered. You've challenged the entire Empire's understanding of combat, of evolution, of what makes a species strong. I threw a punch, Jack said simply. Just did what I was trained to do. You did more than that, Emma insisted. You proved that assumptions can be dangerous. That underestimating someone based on their appearance or their planet's classification is foolish. The Empire has ruled for 1,000 years thinking they knew everything about warfare. You showed them they don't. Jack thought about that for a moment. Is that going to make them want to work with us or make them want to lock us away? I honestly don't know, Emma admitted. But I think Kresh's testimony might tip the balance. A warrior admitting defeat, asking to learn from his opponent, that's powerful. Let's hope you're right, Jack said. Because I really don't want to start an interstellar incident just because I know how to throw a decent right hook. They followed Kresh out into the corridor, heading toward whatever judgment the Imperial Council would deliver. The Imperial Council chamber rose like a cathedral made of light and crystal. Walls stretched 200 feet high, covered in holographic displays showing representatives from 400 different species across the Empire. At the center of it all sat Emperor Aldrich Voss, a being who had lived for 3 centuries and ruled for most of them. His face showed deep lines of wisdom and his eyes missed nothing. Jack stood in the center of the chamber floor, feeling very small. Above him, around him, beings of every imaginable shape watched from their viewing platforms. Some whispered to each other. Others stared in silence. The weight of their attention pressed down like physical force. This session addresses the combat trial between Kresh the Unbreakable and the human Jack Harris. The Emperor's voice filled the chamber, needing no amplification despite the vast space. Admiral Thorne has formally contested the results. Thorne stepped forward from his platform, his 4 arms gesturing dramatically. Your Majesty, honored council members, this trial was meant to demonstrate proper galactic hierarchy. To provide context for a primitive species about their place in civilized society. Instead, we have witnessed what I believe to be deception or malfunction. What evidence do you present? The Emperor asked calmly. The size differential alone makes the outcome impossible, Thorne argued. The human possesses no natural weapons, no armor plating, no enhanced musculature visible to our scanners. Logic dictates that Kresh should have won easily. Therefore something else occurred. Hidden technology perhaps. Or arena malfunction. All scans showed negative for foreign technology, a council member pointed out. Then the scans are faulty. Thorne's voice rose. I demand a rematch under more controlled conditions. Multiple observers. Different arena. Perhaps multiple opponents to ensure a proper assessment of human capabilities. Before the Emperor could respond, the chamber doors opened. Kresh walked in, ignoring all protocol, his footsteps echoing across the crystal floor. Gasps rippled through the assembly. The champion should have been in medical recovery for at least another day. Champion Kresh, the Emperor acknowledged. You should be resting. I am rested enough to speak truth, Your Majesty, Kresh replied, stopping beside Jack. And truth demands that I address this council. You may speak, the Emperor allowed. Kresh turned to face the assembled representatives, his voice strong despite his injured jaw. I was defeated. Fairly. Completely. Decisively. The human Jack Harris used no deception, no hidden weapons, no arena tricks. He used skill that I did not possess and could not counter. Impossible, Thorn hissed. You have trained for 2 centuries. And learned nothing of how Deathworlders fight, Kresh shot back. We train in controlled environments, low-gravity facilities, against opponents who rely on natural advantages and brute strength. The human used something different. He used physics, leverage, the transfer of kinetic energy through rotational movement. He paused, letting that sink in. Concepts we never needed because we evolved differently. Another door opened. Dr. Emma Foster entered, carrying her data pad. She bowed quickly to the Emperor. Your Majesty, I have completed full analysis of the combat trial. May I present my findings? Proceed, the Emperor gestured. Emma's hands shook slightly as she pulled up holographic displays for the entire council to see. Slow-motion footage of Jack's punch played in the air, broken down frame by frame. The human generated approximately 4,000 newtons of force in a distance of 18 inches, she explained. His skeletal structure, evolved under Earth's 1.0 gravity, allowed this without self-injury. Our warriors train in 0.7 gravity environments. They lack both the bone density and the learned technique to generate or withstand such focused impact. Are you claiming humans are superior fighters? A reptilian council member challenged. I'm claiming they're specialized, Emma corrected quickly. Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world. High gravity, extreme weather variations, aggressive predator species, deadly microorganisms. Humans evolved to be efficient survivors in hostile conditions. They learned to weaponize their own biology through technique and training. The Emperor leaned forward in his seat. Jack Harris. Step forward. Jack moved to the center, very aware of hundreds of eyes watching him. You have disrupted our carefully planned demonstration, the Emperor said, though his tone carried more curiosity than anger. Tell me, is your combat ability common among your species? Pretty common, sir, Jack replied. I was a Marine, so I had formal military training. But basic fighting techniques? We teach those to civilians. Self-defense classes, boxing gyms, martial arts schools. Kids learn this stuff for sport and fitness. The council chamber erupted in urgent whispers. Your entire species trains in combat? Someone asked, sounding alarmed. A lot of us, yeah. Not everyone, but it's pretty normal. Jack shrugged. When you live on a planet where a simple cut can get infected and kill you, or where the weather can turn deadly in minutes, you learn to protect yourself. Fighting is just practical knowledge where I come from. Emperor Voss sat back, his ancient mind processing the implications. He looked at Admiral Thorn. Admiral, you wish to demonstrate human inferiority to justify subjugation protocols. Instead, you have revealed a species that teaches advanced combat techniques to its civilians as routine education. A species that survived one of the most hostile planetary environments in known space. He paused. What does that tell you? Thorn's forearms crossed defensively. That they are still one world, Your Majesty. We are an empire of thousands. An empire whose greatest warrior was defeated by what the human considers basic technique. The Emperor interrupted. His gaze swept across the council. We face a choice. We can view humans as threats to be suppressed or as potential allies to be valued. Kresh spoke up again. Your Majesty, there are only 37 Class 12 death worlds in charted space. Only 7 produced sapient species. Only 3 of those achieved space travel. He looked directly at the council. Humans are rare. Their evolutionary solutions to extreme environmental pressure are unique. That makes them valuable, not dangerous. They punched our champion unconscious, Thorn protested. In a fair fight that we initiated, Kresh countered. Would you prefer they had lost and then revealed this capability later during actual conflict? Better to know now what they can do. Emma stepped forward. Your Majesty, I recommend Partnership Accord status. Humanity represents unique adaptations and problem-solving approaches that could benefit the Empire significantly. The chamber fell silent. Partnership Accord was an honor rarely given, reserved for species that brought exceptional value to the Empire. Jack spoke up, his voice calm but firm. Your Majesty, Earth doesn't want to be conquered or controlled. But we're not looking for a fight either. We're willing to share what we know if there's mutual respect involved. We've survived on our world by cooperating, by teaching each other, by learning from mistakes. We can do the same with the Empire, if you're willing." Emperor Voss stood, a rare gesture that made the entire council fall silent. "Jack Harris, I hereby declare the trial results valid and legitimate. Furthermore," he paused, looking around the chamber, "I extend an offer of partnership accord to Earth, pending negotiation of specific terms. And I have an additional proposal. Would you serve as combat consultant to the Imperial forces?" Jack blinked in surprise. "You want me to teach your military how to fight?" "I want you to teach us how humans fight," the Emperor corrected. "New perspectives create stronger warriors. Kresh has already requested this instruction." Jack looked at Kresh, who nodded confirmation. "I'll need help from Earth," Jack said carefully. "This isn't something one person can teach. I'd need to bring trainers, instructors, people who specialize in different fighting styles." "Agreed," the Emperor declared. "Let it be recorded, humanity has earned its place through demonstrated capability. This session is concluded." As the council began to disperse, Thorn approached Jack, his expression unreadable. "You have changed the Empire's trajectory today, human," the Admiral said quietly. "I hope you understand the responsibility that carries." Jack met his gaze steadily. "I just threw a punch, Admiral. Didn't mean to start a political revolution." Thorn's mandibles twitched in what might have been a smile. "Consequences often exceed intentions. Welcome to galactic politics." 3 weeks later, Training Hall 7 on Axis Prime looked nothing like it had before. The sterile military facility had been transformed into something the Empire had never seen, a human-style combat gym. Padded mats covered the floor in thick layers. Heavy bags hung from reinforced chains, swaying slightly. Training dummies stood at attention along the walls. Most unusual of all, the gravity generators had been adjusted to 1.0 Earth standard. Kresh stood in the center of the room with 20 other warriors from various species. All were volunteers. All were champions in their own right. A Faloran with razor-sharp claws. A massive Corvin built like a living tank. 3 more Vraxians eager to learn from their champion. Others from species Jack couldn't even pronounce yet. The door opened and 6 humans entered. Jack led the way, followed by 5 others he had requested from Earth. Mike Patterson, a heavyweight boxer with hands like sledgehammers. Rebecca Stone, compact and dangerous, a master of ground fighting. Tom Rivers, who specialized in practical combat. Lisa Grant, whose kicks could break bones. David Cole, a Marine instructor who had trained hundreds of soldiers. "Welcome to Combat 101 Human Style," Jack announced to the assembled warriors. "First thing you need to understand, we're not here to replace what you know. We're here to add to it. Your natural abilities are real advantages. We're just going to teach you how to use them better." Mike stepped forward, wrapping tape around his knuckles in practiced motions. "I'm going to show you basic striking mechanics. Watch my feet first, then my hips, then my shoulders. Everything connects like a chain." He moved through a simple combination in slow motion. A jab with his left hand. A cross with his right. A hook. An uppercut. Each movement started from his feet, traveled through his legs, rotated through his hips, and exploded out through his arms. "See the rotation?" Rebecca pointed out. "Humans use torque. We turn our body's weaknesses, being bipedal, having limited reach, being relatively small, into advantages through angular momentum and leverage." A Faloran warrior named Thex raised one clawed hand. "But we have natural weapons. Surely our claws are superior to soft fists." Tom grinned. "Let's test that theory. Attack me." Thex hesitated. "I do not wish to harm you." "You won't," Tom said confidently. Thex lunged forward, claws extended in a move that had won him dozens of fights. Tom sidestepped, grabbed the extended arm, and used Thex's own momentum to throw him onto the padded mat. The Faloran landed hard, all the air knocked from his lungs. "Natural weapons are excellent," Tom said, helping Thex back to his feet. "But they make you predictable. You telegraph your attacks before you make them. We're going to teach you how to use your claws more effectively by understanding technique-based fighting." Lisa stepped forward. "Who here has trained in high gravity before?" One hand rose, a Vraxian named Orth. "Good. Everyone else, you're about to understand why Deathworlders move differently." She gestured around the room. "This facility is set to Earth standard gravity. You're going to feel heavier, slower. Your strikes will cost more energy. Welcome to our everyday reality." The training began in earnest. David worked with a group on ground techniques. fighting methods that most species never considered because they relied on staying upright. Rebecca taught leverage-based moves that let smaller fighters control larger opponents through joint manipulation and balance disruption. Kresh worked directly with Jack, relearning everything he thought he knew about punching. Your stance is still too upright, Jack corrected, adjusting Kresh's position. Bend your knees more. Lower your center of gravity. Good. Now when you punch, the power starts in your feet. Push against the ground, let that force travel up through your legs. Kresh threw a punch, his massive fist cutting through the air. It had power, but the form was still wrong. Better, Jack nodded. But you're still using mostly arm strength. Feel the rotation in your hips. Let your body twist. That's where the real power comes from. This is humbling, Kresh admitted, adjusting his stance again. I thought I understood combat. I realize now I only understood one type of combat. That happens when you're undefeated for too long, Jack said. No one can challenge you, so you stop learning. Stop growing. Above them in the observation gallery, Dr. Emma Foster watched alongside Admiral Thorne. She took notes on her data pad, tracking the progress of each warrior. They're learning faster than I predicted, Emma murmured. The Vraxians especially. Their 4 arms give them interesting options once they understand rotational mechanics. Thorne nodded slowly, his earlier hostility replaced with something resembling respect. I opposed this program. Argued against it in 3 separate council meetings. And now I see I was wrong. He watched Kresh execute a combination that blended human hip rotation with Vraxian multi-limb coordination. The human was correct. We had grown complacent. We assumed our size, our technology, our natural weapons made us superior. We stopped innovating in close combat. The Empire has ruled for 1,000 years, Emma said quietly. Sometimes success makes you stop questioning your methods. Below, Jack called the class to attention. All right, everyone, gather up. You did good work today. Tomorrow you're going to be sore. High-gravity training does that, especially if you're not used to it. But you're also going to be better fighters. He paused, looking at each warrior in turn. Someone asked me yesterday why humans are good at violence. Truth is, we're not particularly violent as a species. We're good at problem solving. For millions of years, our problems included predators, disease, starvation, hostile weather, and sometimes each other. Fighting became a tool like making fire or building shelter. We refined it, studied it, passed down the knowledge through generations. Rebecca stepped beside him. You all have natural gifts. Claws, armor, multiple limbs, size advantages. We respect those gifts. But gifts without technique are just wasted potential. We're here to help you develop that potential through training and understanding. Kresh raised all 4 of his fists. To the humans who showed us we still have much to learn. The other warriors raised their various appendages and salute, a gesture of respect that crossed species barriers. Same time tomorrow, Jack said. And bring your best effort. We're introducing grappling concepts and ground fighting. As the warriors dispersed, heading to recovery facilities and rest areas, Kresh approached Jack one final time. You once asked about my world's gravity, the Vraxian said thoughtfully. I have been thinking about that question. Earth's gravity shaped your species. Made you dense, efficient, creative. You had to be to survive. It makes me wonder what other innovations your people have developed that we overlooked. What do you mean? Jack asked, unwrapping the tape from his hands. If we missed something as fundamental as rotational striking technique, what else have we failed to understand about Deathworlders? What other knowledge do you possess that the Empire never considered important? Jack smiled. Well, there's this thing we invented called combined arms tactics. And we've got some interesting ideas about supply logistics. Oh, and you're going to love what we've done with psychological warfare and strategic deception. Kresh's eyes widened. There is more. Kresh, we've been solving survival problems on a hostile planet for 200,000 years. Combat training is just the beginning. The massive warrior laughed, a deep rumbling sound that echoed through the training hall. For the first time in 2 centuries, Kresh felt like a student again instead of a master. And he had never been more excited to learn.